Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Kevin Lewis from the Middle Initial Podcast. Once again, it is fantasy football season. It is the middle of August. Football season is rapidly approaching. Um, I'm doing a four-part series where I go through each position in fantasy: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end. And I'm here to essentially give spark notes to the people who might not want to sift through hours and hours of content, whether it's reading or listening, watching, whatever it is. If you feel like you want to cram for your fantasy draft, I got you. I am here to help you win money, or pride. I don't. Some of y'all don't play for money, whatever. I'm just here to help y'all win. Okay. So this one, I'm gonna talk about wide receivers. Um, there's a little bit less to talk about here than running backs because I feel like it's a little bit more straightforward. Even though I freely admit after say maybe like wide receiver 8 or so, like it kind of flattens out. Like there's a lot of dudes who could. There's not a huge difference between like wide receiver 9 and like wide receiver 25. There's a bunch of dudes in there who have really good upside, have some downside, but there's not a huge difference in projection or how what to expect or what like that upside is for a lot of those dudes in like the 9 to 25 to 30 range. But without further ado, I'll get into it. There's not a whole lot to talk about with Tyreek Hill and CeeDee Lamb. If you want to dock CeeDee because he's not in camp yet, I'm not here to stop. I wouldn't personally. I don't care that much, but if you want to dock him, you dock him. Cool. I think Tyreek is slightly ahead of him simply because Tyreek is in camp and CeeDee is not. But that's a coin flip kind of situation. They are to me the two tier one wide receivers. After that, Jamar Chase. He unfortunately his situation he's kind of not you know what I mean. He's tied to Joe Burrow's health. So and Joe Burrow's health, as much as people don't want to call him injury prone, he kind of is. So the thing with that is, if you're comfortable taking the chance on Joe Burrow, this is not just you're not drafting Jamar Chase just for Jamar Chase and just because of Jamar Chase. If you're comfortable taking the risk on Joe Burrow too, then fine, draft Jamar Chase. I am personally. Granted, a quarterback having a wrist problem isn't exactly inspiring a whole lot of confidence, but I'm willing to take the chance because if Joe Burrow plays the right 14 to 15, let's say he misses two or three, he plays the right 14 to 15, you should be fine. So I'm willing to take that chance. Amon-Ra St. Brown, as predictable a wide receiver as there is in the NFL with regard to production, I don't feel like there's much to say about that. Justin Jefferson, I feel like we're overthinking this. Like I saw a lot regarding Sam Darnold getting the job yesterday. JJ McCarthy getting hurt, and Sam Darnold is the starter for the foreseeable future. McCarthy has a meniscus tear, which is kind of tricky because some guys get the meniscus removed entirely, some don't, and then if you don't, you might have problems down the road. I am no doctor. That's just what I've read. But a lot over like can Justin Jefferson produce with Sam Darnold the center? Listen, first of all, Kevin O'Connell's system is really good. It's really quarterback friendly, unless you're Jaron Hall. It's really receiver friendly. They're gonna put the ball up. I don't see their defense like stopping anybody enough for to affect the pass volume at all. So is Justin Jefferson like good enough to justify taking him despite Sam Darnold being the quarterback? Yeah, given every bit of available context, the answer is a firm hell yes. Like if you want to take the other four receivers that I previously mentioned over him, I understand that completely. Once you get past that, I'm talking about just players, period. Unless it's the other three running backs. If you want to take one of those running backs over him too, I get it. But once you start talking about like Jahmyr Gibbs, Puka, AJ, like I think we're going a little bit far with that personally. I think he's going to be just fine. And I think we need to stop overthinking this. Justin Jefferson is arguably the league's best wide receiver playing in a really playing in a pass first quarterback friendly system. I think he will be fine. Um, I think Devontae Adams is a clear fade. I'm not doing it with Aiden McConnell, Gardner Mitt, whoever, whichever one, whoever wants to take the job. I'm not doing it with them personally. He's going like the risk is not baked into the price. If you were telling me he was going around 3 instead, okay, you take the chance at that point. I'm just not doing it. Every year I say I'm going to invest in good or projected to be good offenses, and I never I do it somewhat, but I still like will make special exceptions and ignore it in some cases. I'm not doing that here. Full fade for me unless he falls to a reasonable spot. I wanted to do this after the Brandon Ayuk thing was settled because I wish the 49ers and Steelers would just keep us out of the fucking. Well, mostly the Niners, to be fair here. But I wish both of them would just keep, and Ayuk, and whoever else is involved, I wish they would all just keep us out the group chat. We don't need to hear minute to minute updates on what the Steelers are going to do or what they have done, what the Niners are going to do, who's offering what, who's offering this, that, and the third. We need to hear all that. Anyways, as far as Debo, I think Debo is probably a top 10 or borderline top 10 guy. If Ayuk gets traded, if he doesn't, he's more in the like 16, 17 range. So Debo's numbers without Ayuk on the field the last couple of years have been absolutely ludicrous. Like in the most unsustainable way. It was like some stupid like a 5 yards per route run, which is impossible to sustain. Either way, he gets an uptick. So does Kittle, but we'll talk about that on the tight end show. Um, Marvin Harrison Jr. Marvin Harrison Jr. I don't know if I could justify paying a high second for him, but I also understand that the high second in this year's draft is kind of nasty because you're going to be taking a chance on like Jahmyr Gibbs. Like Puka's already hurt, and he has some durability issues. Who else are you? You're looking at Devontae Adams. Like I already explained that that's a fade for me. Like Drake London, I like Drake. I think Kirk Cousins is going to be really good for him. The thing with Drake London is, pretty much every bit of his upside is priced into his ADP already. So you're not gonna. There isn't much room for Drake London to return profit. If you don't care about that, I understand that too. Like if he meets his upside and he's the 16th best player in fantasy, you're not going to sit here and be like, well, I wish he was 12. So if you think that that's a likely outcome here, then go for it. I'm drafting him because again I'm trying to draft from good offenses, and I think Drake London is a good player who's just been stuck in a shit offense for the last whatever 2-3 years, however long he's been in the National Football League. But Marv is high at that. Like I play in 95 fantasy leagues, so I will take some Marv because I could do that. If you're telling me I'm playing in some high stakes 10K league, God knows I wish I had that kind of money to spend on a fucking fantasy league, but that's neither here nor there. Would I be taking Marv? Probably not. And I'm not a risk averse kind of dude like that, but I think his upside compared to other people in that range is not so much higher that I have to go out there and take him. It's just not to me. Um, Jalen Waddle, good player. In the games he finished last year, he would have been like wide receiver 6 as far as points per game goes. If you extrapolate that over a full season, he's a good player. The Texans. So let's just cover them all at once. The Texans. Diggs is the only one I'm not willing to draft out of that. I think Tank Dell's probably the best bet because he's the cheapest at the moment. There's a world where Diggs just smokes anybody's realistic expectations and it's just what he's always been. If you're telling me it's a crowded receiver room with 3 dudes who are really fucking good, which is what's happening here, I'm going to default to not take the oldest one who is also Nico is going ahead of him by ADP, but I'm just not going to take the oldest one. So I'm going to take like Nico Collins kicked ass last year, Tank Dell kicked ass last year. What that looks like over the course of a full season, CJ Stroud's second season, I don't fucking know. We're about to find out. But I think Tank Dell is a screaming value where he's going. And if you want a piece of the Texans passing game, I think that's probably the smartest way to go about it because it's the cheapest way you could go about it. So Devontae Smith is interesting because Kellen Moore is the new offensive coordinator. He's one of the pass heaviest offensive coordinators in football. And his slot receiver gets a ton of work, a ton of looks, and he's willing to put, his best receiver there to get the matchups that they want to get. So CeeDee Lamb cooked there for Kellen Moore. Keenan Allen cooked there, even though he's primarily a slot anyway. But regardless, Kellen Moore likes to dial it up, likes to throw it to a slot. Now, Devontae Smith, in his career, he's been more productive from the slot, albeit in a lot less snaps than he gets from the X or the Z positions. He's been quite efficient, quite productive from the slot. So if they use him in that manner, on a somewhat regular basis, then we could be looking at something. We could be looking at Smith outkicking his ADP. So I like him personally. I think the slot usage is something to monitor personally, and how much they throw the ball is also another thing to monitor. Because I expect the Eagles to put it up this year at least a 60% clip. I expect them to put the ball in the air. Malik Nabers. It's tough to bet on somebody in a bad offense, or somebody you expect to be in a bad offense, somebody who's tethered to a bad quarterback. I understand that, and I understand that I've alluded to at least 3 different times in the show already in 10 minutes that I'm trying to invest in people in good offenses. Chances are I'm not going to be investing in Malik Nabers because by the time a couple more highlights, and by the time draft season comes around, he's going to be like a late second round pick. I can't justify doing that. I'm not necessarily telling you not to, though, because he's wildly talented in a way that affects what kind of targets you can earn. Because, well, he's wildly talented. You earn targets. That's how it works. And obviously, they picked him in the top 6. They have reasons to fucking target him frequently besides the talent. And Wan'Dale Robinson, nice player. He's not going to stop Malik Nabers from getting a lot of targets. Darius Slayton, nice player. Same thing applies. So if he volume his way into a really good season simply because A, volume, and B, the talent? Maybe. So I'm not advising against you taking Malik Nabers. And if you get any kind of discount, which might be the case, depends on who you draft with. Obviously, the room is the room. The draft room is the draft room. If you can get him for a little bit less, that's a win. But he is the preeminent bet on talent wide receiver in fantasy football this year, in my opinion. As far as other top guys who have some value, Cooper Kupp is interesting. Yes, he's older. Yes, he just came off an injury-prone season, an injury-littered season. But he's still at his peak was one of the best fantasy football wide receivers ever, one of the most productive ever. We're talking about 400 points in a season. Is that coming back? Probably not. The thing is, I already the aforementioned Puka Nacua does have durability issues. When Kupp and Nacua were on the field and healthy last year, they both averaged around the same amount of fantasy points and the same amount of targets together. And what if Cooper Kupp is just back to being the number 1 wide receiver on the Rams? That's not exactly some wild thing to project. If he plays anywhere near a full season and he's the most targeted receiver on the Rams, nobody would be surprised. And the word out of camp is that he's the healthiest he's ever been. And I understand how camp reports work. I understand a lot of it is drinking the Kool-Aid. I get that, but if he's the healthiest he's ever been, the other guy's already hurt, and they both are a relative 1A, 1B. It's a relative 1A, 1B type of situation in that offense. Betting on Cooper Kupp at a potential discount, to me, is smart. I think he's one of the best values out there. He's going around 3 on average at the moment. I think he's one of the best values out there, given what he can do and given what the word is coming out of camp. So I'd target him. Um, Chris Godwin is another one. He's more in the wide receiver 30 kind of range. I think he could finish like a mid tier wide receiver too. You know, they're moving him back to the slot. They got a McVay disciple to call the plays now. His best work has come from the slot, and I expect Tampa to be worse. So I expect them to be throwing the ball more. So I like Chris Godwin where he's going. Nobody's going to be excited to click Chris Godwin's name on draft day. I understand that, but I think I think him going where he is presents presents potential value, and a guy who also, like, if you're playing in a league with flexes, however many flexes, and they count points per catches, your flexes should probably be pass catchers, namely wide receivers, unless you just land on two elite tight ends somehow. Which, I mean, that's possible, no doubt, but I think the likeliest outcome that you should be looking at is wide receivers for your flex spots. So Chris Godwin as your flex or one of your flexes, I think you could do a lot worse. Uh, Deontay Johnson's another one. I know people have been kind of let down by Deontay for like 3 years now. I get it largely because let's call it spade a spade. The Steelers' offense has been a mess. He's elite at getting open. I understand sometimes he has concentration drops. I understand that his after the catch skills are lacking, but he's the X in Dave Canales' offense. He probably is going to get peppered with fucking targets. We assume that Bryce Young and them are going to look a little bit better in a more competent offense led by a more competent coordinator. I don't think if he plays the full season, I don't think there's a way in hell that he doesn't exceed value because he's going at like wide receiver 36 at the moment. I think he is if he plays the whole season and all that, I think he's at worst a back end wide receiver too. So I think that's a value that presents itself, and you can start him in your flex spot. The DJ Moore stuff, I love DJ Moore. First of all, like love. You're probably not going to find many people who love DJ Moore more than I do. Love DJ Moore. Been go way back with DJ Moore, or his actual name, Deniston Oliver Moore Jr. Love that guy. Love him. Love him. Love him. Love him. The wide receiver room for the Bears is a little bit crowded. So does that take off his plate? Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. Personally, I'm here to draft more or Odunze because Odunze is considerably cheaper, and more I believe. And Caleb Williams, he's probably gonna have some growing pains as a rookie. I'd assume that he has growing pains as a rookie, but his arm is so good, he's so talented that I don't think that affects DJ Moore too much. Could be famous last words, could be Otix exposed, whoever, but I don't think DJ Moore will be affected too much by Caleb Williams. So I'd be drafting him at cost, simply because quite frankly, I'm biased. I love DJ Moore. Amari Cooper, I think, is another potentially undervalued one. In the games Watson played last year, he averaged, like, I want to say it was like 17 fantasy points a game in PPR leagues, which would have been like 8th if you extrapolate that over the full season. Nasty Man is back for now. However that goes, it goes. And nobody really wants to click. Amari Cooper is one of them dudes you really don't want to click. And to a degree, I understand it because he is volatile, and his road home splits have been hilarious for a long time now. And when he disappears, buddy. So I get why somebody wouldn't necessarily want to roster Amari Cooper, but you don't have to pay a lot to do it. So, and if you need, if let's say you went running back heavy and you need a wide receiver too, Amari Cooper is as good as anybody in that range to be your wide receiver too. As far as lower guys who are potential values, Josh Palmer. First of all, the coaching staff in San Diego, the LA Chargers coaching staff, they claimed they wanted to draft him when they were in Baltimore. Greg Roman, whatever. He claimed he wanted to draft him when he was in Baltimore. As of now, Palmer's probably the number one wide receiver. But also, before I go any further, if Justin Herbert's not healthy, just scratch all this from the record. If he's not healthy, none of this matters. But assuming Justin Herbert is healthy enough to play, Josh Palmer is potentially his number one wide receiver. And I understand that people think they're going to run the ball 800 times. I think that's a little bit overblown. Yes, they're not going to be one of the pass heaviest teams in football. No shit, duh. But I don't think that Harbaugh is going to look around and have Justin Herbert, who is one of the most talented, one of the most gifted passers in the National Football League, and be like, you know what we need to do? We need to be the 09 Jets. I just don't see it. But hey, I've been wrong before. I'll be wrong again. But Josh Palmer's another bet you don't have to pay shit to make. So I'd make that bet if I were you, and you could draft him as your wide receiver 4, in some cases your wide receiver 5, on down the list. And if he produces, he produces, and if he doesn't, you don't really lose a whole lot. So I'd be with that if I were you. Rashid Shaheed, good player. I don't know how much interest I have in Derek Carr's number 2 wide receiver, but he's going so late that it doesn't fucking matter. And when him and Olave play, their production is not typically that different from one another. It's just not. They're both typically productive. Shaheed's a good player, and obviously he has contingent upside in the case that Olave goes down. So, and he goes extremely late. So, take him and prosper. The Packers. I would be remiss if I didn't touch on the Packers situation in entirety. I would take Christian Watson of all of them because I think he has the biggest upside, the highest ceiling of them all, and is the cheapest not named Dobbs. Oh yeah, Wicks. Sorry, Wicks is cheaper, but we've already seen his upside at the NFL level. When he plays, he's a premier big play threat. So he had some bad luck last year when he did play because he got the Jordan Love that was bad to begin the year, and a Jordan Love who was bad throwing the ball deep. So it's tough. Like, it's tough for Watson, but he has league winning kind of upside, and you're getting him, and we know this because we've seen it, and you're getting him at a really, really reasonable price anyway. Look, there's a world where none of them are guys you can trust to start every week. I get that too. There's a world because all of them seem to be good in their own way, but I think all of their prices are a little bit depressed because of that fact. We know they're all good, and we don't know which one to fucking take. So Watson, Wicks, Reed, I'd take shots at all of them. Probably less of Reed than the other ones because he's more expensive. But also draft Jordan Love. Like, if you just don't want to deal with the shit, draft Jordan Love because obviously they're all gonna benefit. He's gonna benefit from all of them and how good they are and blah blah blah. So if you just like, I love the Packers passing, I just don't want to guess which wide receiver. Okay, just take the quarterback then. No problem. All right, so I hope that was helpful. I went through wide receivers quicker than I thought I would go through them, to be honest. But I hope that was helpful in going through the wide receivers. And listen, just in PPR leagues, you want to have a really good wide receiver 1. I'm not saying it's the be-all, end-all, but you want to. Oh, also, I'd be remiss. Rome Odunze, excuse me, that's how you pronounce it. Rome Odunze. If you're drafting Rome Odunze, like, first of all, there's a world where he's the best of the receivers that were drafted this year. If you want to take neighbors, I'm not going to argue any of those 3. If you want to take them, take them. But there's a world where he's the most talented of them. And you're not drafting him, like, first of all, you're not drafting him high. He's not going high. And second of all, you're not drafting him for what he could do in September or October. For the most part, with rookie wide receivers, we aren't drafting them for what they do in the beginning anyway. So if you draft him late and he cooks in November, December, nobody will care. You will just take it and you'll go on with it. So draft Rome Odunze. The Bears project to be at this point. I want to say they were like the 13th highest scoring offense by the over under, and they were, I think they were 13th best. So you want to draft him, draft him. But ultimately, I think wide receiver has some really good value in the mid to late rounds. I think Rashi Rice is somebody who you should aggressively target, especially every day goes by and it becomes less likely he gets suspended. So I would aggressively target Rashi Rice. I don't think people quite understand how good he was last year. Like he was top 10 in yards per route run and top 10 in targets per route run as a rookie. That's extremely rare. And I understand that he was used in a way where he was kind of the dink and dunk yards after the catch guy, but he was also prodigious at it. And I don't think, and I think that was kind of a product of what the Chiefs' offense was going through last year, as opposed to what he is as a player. So I would not be surprised to see his responsibilities expand as he goes into year two. Now, he seemed to be a bit off as far as off the field dealings, to be fair. So if you wanted to avoid him because of that, I could not look you in the face and blame you, because it just feels like what's next and what is he gonna do next. With that said, he hasn't done it yet, and he's most likely not going to be suspended this year. So I think he's a bargain at this point. All right, I haven't done the tight end series yet. That'll be part 4 of this. I shouldn't say part 4 because I don't even know how I'm gonna release them, or in what order I'm gonna release them. But happy drafting to all of you. And if you have any questions, feel free. You can hit the pod page at mypod69. You can hit me personally on the side. I do draft guides if you need it. Like if you need it in written form, I got you. If you want, just hit me. Again, my ad's KLEW24. And I'm just here to help you win. Peace.